Everyone, it's Allison. I'm in my violin studio, and today I want to talk about bow holds. I'm going to start, I think this is going to take 2 or 3 clips. I've got a crazy cat running around, so there may be interruptions. I want to start, I'm going to do one hopefully short video on just the basic bow hold, and then I'll do another video about bowing, which is, so they're related, but you know, you got to start somewhere. So we're going to start with the basic hold, and I'm sure you've seen there's a bunch of videos out there on YouTube already about the bow hold, and by and large most of them are, you know, fairly bang on. You've got, you know, the famous bunny, talk to the bunny. This is a really good way to start, actually, because it's simple to understand and it's kind of simple to do, and it gets you off on the right track. Well, from my perspective, the thing I'm initially looking for most is we want to have rounded joints, and the rounded joints are really, surprisingly, really important. If you have rigid joints, and I know it's difficult not to get some rigidity in your bow hand in the early years or months, but you have to keep in mind that the function of the bow hand is kind of like shock absorbers for a vehicle. Your bow needs to track on the string. The string is going to vibrate, so the string itself is trying to kind of kick the bow off. You know, there's a little bit of physics involved here, so you need to be keeping the bow in the string, because if you think of the string vibrating, you know, it's got a distance through which, in space, through which it's vibrating, right? It's got an upper and lower kind of area where it's moving. So you don't want the bow to be skating along the top of that. You're going to get nasty sounds. You want to try and keep the bow down in the middle, so that you're kind of, I think effectively, the physics gets complicated. I think you're kind of stopping the vibration at that point. But if you don't have enough weight on the bow, the vibration will continue underneath the bow, and your bow skates, and you get a whistling kind of a quality to your sound. So, okay, that may or may not be exactly right. If you're a physicist, you may know better than me, or a mathematician. No, this is more bow. So what we want to do is we want flexibility. The other thing is, of course, as you're putting the bow on the string for this or that, it's going to react, it's going to bounce a bit. So you need shock absorbers, and you need to be able to transmit a little bit of, I'm going to say weight. Pressure is a really bad concept for violin because pressure creates ugly sounds. But weight and control is what we're looking for. So, bunny. You start by you've got this crease in here. You want to just put your thumb tip into the crease. And it can be either evenly between the 2 fingers or just behind the second finger. I kind of personally prefer the second finger, but I don't think it matters. Okay, so, and look at the thumb. How many joints do you have in a thumb? You've got this one, and you've got this one. There's something down here too. Okay, some people have this joint will kind of lock inwards, so hopefully you want to keep 1, 2, 3 bent. And then you can see here, a knuckle row here, the knuckle row here, and these guys here, all rounded. Now the 4th and the 1st, counting in violin numbers, the index and the pinky, they tend to stay up. If you look at the way the hand naturally falls, you know, everybody's hand's a little bit different, but generally the 2 middle fingers will hang together, and you get these guys a little bit apart. And we, you know, basically do the same thing, excuse me, on the bow. So hence, let's just keep these guys out of the way for the moment, and let's get this working. And then what you want to do to understand where the bow goes in this is you come along. I've just got a marker here, and see if it's clear at the other end. So your thumb tip, kind of the nail part, so it's not like that, it's like this. See, keep that bump, and then you come along and just slip a pencil or something between the crease on the one hand and the thumb tip on the other. So now your thumb tip is touching. I don't know if I can show you. So it's really the corner of where the nail meets the flesh at the outer tip on an angle that is. That shadow is the cat jumping over the camera. Okay, so that's what's happening there. Now I'm going to backtrack. Let's take a bow. Some teachers start with, I'll take this bow. Some teachers will start with the thumb underneath. That can work. I generally don't, because I don't think of it. For adults, I think it's a bit tricky because you have a lot more weight. You've got a bigger bow. For kids, it can work very well. But I usually just go directly onto the bow, so that's what I'll do here. So you don't want to have your arm below the bow. In terms of sound production, that creates problems because you have no physical means of sound production. Because this is not a plugged-in instrument. I mean, unless you plug it in. But so where does your sound come from? Well, it's got to come from your muscles. So there's got to be a way of getting your muscle energy into the bow and into the violin. If you keep your arm high, you can lean, and actually ultimately what we're trying to do is get the strength of your back to create sound. And, you know, it comes with time. You won't see that happening instantly. But so this arm needs to be up. We don't want the shoulder up. Remember that the shoulder is a ball and socket joint. So you can raise your arm. It doesn't mean that you raise, right? If this is your shoulder, you don't need to do this. In order to lift your arm, leave this alone and just lift the arm. So hopefully that makes sense. So just lift your arm. We want to have horizontal. I always tell the kids you need to be able to set a cup of tea or a glass of milk there and not have it spill. I'm sorry, I'm a little off camera because I'm just making sure that I'm putting my arm where you can see it. So this is level. Your hand is going to droop a little bit, okay? We don't want that. We want it to droop. We want it to be relaxed and happy. Okay, so when you have your bow, what I always tell people to do, make a circle, kind of pivot around your shoulder, and flop onto the stick. And the reason I have people do that is because when you bring your arm in from above, you bring on board all of your back muscles. And you may feel that, and it may not be obvious to you. You know, experiment a little bit, and if you don't get it, don't worry, go on. So flop onto the stick, and I can't really do this in a big way because I'm going to knock out the camera. But so there we are, and flop. Now the flop, I always try and get people to do this. And I know it looks wrong because now my arm's low. I just take a few minutes and play with this because you want your hand to sink into the stick. You want to develop a sensitivity. You want that stick to become part of your hand. So basically you want the inside crease of your fingertips, just for the moment, and this is not ultimately exactly what you're doing, but just kind of sink into the stick and feel it, okay? And now you roll around a little bit with your middle fingers. So come along, you do a flop, and now roll forward. Now, what I tell students to do, as a rule, is roll quite far forward with the first fingers. This varies from teacher to teacher. There are different types of bow grips. I'm kind of playing with, as best as I understand it, a Russian grip. I never had a teacher teach that, but I'm finding that further over works better for me, and it seems to be working well for a lot of my students. But not quite as far over is very common, and that can work too. So, but this is what I tell my students. Roll right over and leave that finger sticking out. Do not curl it under, because then you'll be whacking yourself in the head with the tip of the stick all the time. So roll that over. Now second finger. Can you see the little U-shaped hole? The fleshy part of your second finger just kind of snuggles into that hole. And that's the real anchor for the hand. That's how you know you're in the right spot. So there's your second finger on the fleshy part in the hole. Third finger is just snug. Third finger is kind of like your slightly younger brother who hangs out with you all the time. Periodically you wish he wouldn't. Oops, I'm going to lose a violin. Okay, so there's first finger down, second finger in the hole, third finger is a friend, may or may not be covering up the eye. And what's really good about this rolled right over position for the fingers is that then the fourth finger, the pinky, is pretty much obliged to be curled. All right. You will see people playing the violin with their fingers up here. That's not good. We don't want that. You're going to have very little control, and you're going to have to squeeze really hard, so you'll get harsh sound, a lot of bouncing, and you may get a lot of squeaking and squealing because your ability to control the bow is pretty limited. Wrap it around. It's like the difference between being pinched by long, skinny, bony fingers or have some, big round person give you a bear hug, just wrap their arm around your shoulder. They're not really hanging on to you, but you're not going anywhere, right? So you want to have this friendly bear hug thing going on. And then, of course, one of the things I like about this Russian grip is that, see, that way over, second finger in the hole, third finger friend, pinky up top, is that then on the inside, your thumb is pretty much where it needs to go. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to take this off so you can see what I'm doing. Remember that corner when we were looking on the this thing? And I was saying that it's kind of the corner where the nail meets the flesh out at the tip. Okay, so that kind of... See, that's why I took this bow. You've got, as a general rule, you've got some leather wrapping, or maybe vinyl or plastic on a student bow. You may or may not have silver wrapping or whalebone wrapping up here. It may just be a plastic collar all the way down. But typically, then there's a little bit of exposed wood right here. And then, I haven't got nothing white to put behind it. And then the bump. So what we want to do is put this edge of the thumb on the bump. So the thumb is not pointing this way. The thumb is actually kind of pointing this way. Okay, and that's good because we don't want the thumb to squeeze the fingers. And Newtonian physics decrees that something is going to keep going until it gets stopped. And of course, so if your thumb is going that way, the only thing to stop it is your fingers, and you're going to be squeezing like mad. It will be very painful and not sound very good. So get your thumb pointed down that way. The edge just kind of perched on that little hump. So now if we go back to the flop, first finger rolls down, second on the hole, third friend, pinky perched, and then just put the corner of your fingernail. Oh, that's sure hard to show. Maybe that's better angle. So it's kind of stopped up there. Okay, and then see how I can lean right into it, and it's okay. Not all teachers may want you to do this, but I find I'm quite happy if your thumb knuckle leans right into the hair. That's okay. It doesn't really matter if that spot of the hair gets dirty because you're not going to be playing on that spot. So basically what you've got then is a hand that feels pretty much completely paralyzed. And that's okay. The object is... keeping in mind, the hand does not play the violin, and I'll explain that more on the bowing technique video. The hand does not actively play the bow. The arm is playing the violin. The hand is a transition point. Okay, so if your thumb feels completely incapacitated, that's okay. What we're asking for is a flexible joint, and you're going to use your forearm to move it. Okay, so that's what it should kind of look like, or it might look like that if you're doing the more Franco-Belgian. Either's fine. There is some, of course, infinite variations possible. If you kind of jiggle your bow stick, if everything is relaxed and rounded, your fingers should be able to adapt, and that's what will enable you to keep the bow tracking in a straight line. It's this flexibility, okay? Don't let your forearm get stuck below. We'll talk more about that later. You want this slightly hanging down shape, and that should be good. Okay, so I hope that helps, and I will get on to another tape with bowing technique. Okay, bye.